Hey guys, this is Darius Komodo Dragon Jesus Fighter here for PokerVIP. Today I'm making a 4-tabling 100 element video on stars. We're back to the non-zoom, non-snap variety. And just getting into it, we're starting off with a 4-bet with kings and attempting to defend a gut shot, but that's not going exceptionally well. Yeah, versus this sizing. I do have the double gutter here, right? Straight on a 6 or a 10. Against that sizing, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it profitable, though, out of position. And so I 4-bet kings pre-flop, and of course, you know, I'm very happy with that move. Get flatted by Lazarev, and even though it doesn't really seem like it, a queen X board is fairly scary because I'm basically never going to have queens, barring some sort of a like 4-bet bluff with queen jack offsuit. But he'll have all stuff like king queen, ace queen, queen jack type stuff, and this is actually kind of a cool river. It's kind of a cool river because I'm going to check it, and he's going to have some low pairs that will have to turn themselves into bluffs here. Or, you know, like if he has pocket tens here, he's playing aces and queens with 10 kicker, which he should expect to win basically never. So I'm going to go with the check call on the river. And he has pair of eights, so he showed down 9 high there. Which of course I'm not terribly upset about, because I'm going to win, but I would have preferred that he threw in a bluff. We got pocket tens versus an incredibly loose player. I see his aggression frequencies are off the charts. So even though I think betting or checking could be reasonable on this board, just going to decide to check to him and see if we can get him to just put in a lot of money. Once he checks back, I'm just going to go for a couple small streets of value. Small to medium streets, I guess. And the queen is not a card I want to see. But it goes check, check, and we're going to take it down likely against some sort of small pair. On this run out, I don't think the queen 8 can profitably call down. So let's fold that river. And we'll have a couple folds here. Jack 4 offsuit versus cutoff raise is not something I'm going to be playing. I get 3-bet, but it's 3-bet really small. These low offsuit aces I still don't think play exceptionally well here, so even though this 3-bet sizing is small, I am going to fold. And let's see if we can get some action with the ace-queen. Looks like we can't, that's too bad. Games are seeming pretty soft today, guys. There's a couple very loose players at these bottom tails of mine, and a couple soft spots at the others as well. It's also the weekend, so I expect good things. I'm going to slide this table over here. or I have king queen on the triple diamond board, and I do have the second nut flush draw. This player is so far quite loose, playing 45% of hands, so I'm not really going to dick around here or anything. I'm just going to bet several times for large sizings. Now that this comes, I don't know if I can go for 3 streets anymore, especially with like the 10 and the 8 on board here. Because like I get value out of a jack, or I get 3 streets of value, like maybe out of a jack. But even though it's just like 1 tick lower, I don't think we're getting all the streets of value out of a 9. I'm going to keep on betting. It gets a little awkward if I get raised. But I definitely think there's still value to be had. And it's either a spot where I want to go bet, check, bet, or bet, bet, check, very likely. Unless I think villain is particularly crazy. And we face an overbet with the 6-3. All right, bud. Gonna be floating my king jack offsuit here against the guy just playing a ton of hands. The looser he is, the better that float will be. Then he continues it with a pot, setting up for, you know, getting all the money in. Unimproved, I will be folding. It's a spot where I'm not going to improve like, very much at all. But given the price on the flop and players' tendency to just barrel those types of boards, I think we'll be doing all right. And I'm actually going to call here with the ace-8, which is typically something I would absolutely never do out of the small blind. But we have this player here raising 75% of hands whenever he's raising first in. He's fairly aggressive, and I think there's value to be had against this player that there might not be against other players. And I'm actually going to go for a really big bet on the river here. We're just going to go like 1431. If he has an 8, we're getting all the money in anyways. If he has a queen that he slow plays on the flop, we're going to get some nice value. Something like Jack 10 might be tempted to call this when hitting on that river. But on that run out, let's just say he has something like ace high. Let's just say he has something like, what was the other pair on board? Like a 7. I don't think we're getting called down all that often. And I actually was planning to flat the queen 10 here against him, but looks like cutoff has decided to throw in a little bit of raise, and, well, he's going to get the action. Get snap shoved on. I can't imagine he's really folding here too often. Typically, it's a decision you make before raising, whether you're going to raise, call it off, or raise, fold. And if the decision is raise fold against a 30 big blind stack, then you probably shouldn't be raising in the first place. And unfortunately, we lost our player there. That's no fun. Got a limp coming in blind versus blind. This guy has limped before, both in the small blind and in the middle position. I think king 7 is definitely going to be good enough to throw in a raise. And while I think 3-5 suited occasionally makes a good 3-bet bluff, this player so far has not really been folding to 3 bets. So I'm going to take a pass on that one, and I don't think I can play it profitably as a call, even though the odds are pretty good. Got the nice little overbet coming out of this. I'm not even going to try to say that guy's name. Overbet coming in from big blind on the bottom left table. There, that's his name. Wow. Okay. You know what? Hold on. I want to look back at that one. I feel like I missed something there. So there was a raise and a flat and a call and then check raise on the turn. Check raise on the turn from Silverino. Pretty big check raise too. Then he jams the river and he gets, of course, we just saw he gets heroed by the pair of eights. And it's good. Wow. Nice call. And now, because I have this player at a couple of my tables, his name is kind of on the radar. You know, maybe he's going to do some aggressive things. It's one of the things I like about these, you know, the non-Zoom games. You actually get to see hands play out. Like if we were playing a fast fold game, I would have folded, never would have seen that hand. Now I have more information against a player that I'm playing against. Kings versus nines getting it all in here. That seems fairly standard. And I'm just going around here, guys. Anybody I see with less than 100 big blinds, I'm going to give them the nice little casual player tag. And I'm also going to throw in a raise here with the 6-8. Let's defend our blind here. Jack 9, probably going to play some sort of call once, fold later strategy. But then he just overbets. And yeah, so I'm looking at his aggression frequencies, and if he just like bet everything all the time, then frankly, I think we could potentially get away with some sort of line where, you know, I call him down really late because this guy's just nuts. But because I see that, you know, it's not necessarily the case there, I'm just going to decide to fold to the small flop overbet. All right, 3-bet spot here with the king queen. Up against what seems like a fairly tight player so far. I have absolutely zero info about how he plays against 3-bets or in 3-bet pots or anything like that. Which naturally over a small sample is pretty standard. Looks like we get the fold this time, and I'm satisfied with that, guys. Okay, so queen 5-5 board. It's a very dry board. It's going to be very hard to connect with. And I Love Ukraine leads into me for some reason. Maybe he misread the preflop action or something. I'm going to have a range advantage here, so I'm typically going to be raising a lot of hands. I mean, this hand falls into not quite nice territory, but his line doesn't really make sense, so we're attacking it. And while this player has been kind of loose, his 3-betting frequencies have been pretty tight, so we're going to get rid of the marginal Jack-7 suited on the top right there. Going to make a big 3-bet against a player who's only folded 3 out of 18 times. So we're going to go up to 12. And I'm going to start off with a bet with the 10s. I think you could start off with a check. I don't think there's a huge difference. Okay, so these deuce 3-5 boards, I'm not going to be betting these with just everything because, you know, it is fairly easy for both players to continue with a decent amount of hands. I think this is also pretty good for a small blind calling range because a small blind calling range is going to include a hell of a lot of suited hands, for which a lot of those are going to have flush draws. Some ace highs as well as a decent amount of pairs. And going up against that range, I don't think we actually get enough folds to just barrel any 2 cards against small blind alone, and then you consider that big blind is also in the pot. His range hasn't really changed on the turn, though maybe he's betting a decent amount of his pairs. We're still not doing incredibly well. And then it's interesting that he bets the river card that actually, you know, should benefit me more than him. But I guess he can have some stuff like, you know, like king 10s, stuff like that. And with jack high, I don't think I'm gonna fight about this one too much. So this Triceratops guy over here has been talking at the tables quite a bit. What's he talking about? He probably some hand where he lost 7s to kings. I actually like to see that. You know, it's a small thing, but typically, you know, the more vocal somebody is at the table, the less likely they are to, you know, be a 10 tabling reg, and if you're not a 10 tabling reg, then you're more likely to just be on the casual side. So love to see him making some moves, chatting it up. It's definitely good for the games. And as much as I would love to, I'm not going to be defending the 9-6 offsuit. Even if this guy calls, guys, odds are not good enough. 3's 5-handed will be a raise. And ace-5, I'm going to be defending all my aces blind versus blind. If I have some information about this guy like folding to a lot of 3-bets, I might take some of my baby offsuit aces and just 3-bet bluff them instead, but I think the standard play is just to mash the call button. Flop a pair of aces, that's awesome. This run out is pretty favorable for him. I think if I get checked to on this turn, I'll likely be checking the turn back. Even though there's a couple cards we don't want to see, mainly, queens, jacks. Even though there's those couple cards, I want to be able to have a hand that can call a river bet. And if I'm betting all my aces on the turn, I won't have too many kings on the turn. Like, it'll be mainly stuff like, king jack the times I don't 3-bet it. Then that just leaves me with a bunch of 10s, and he can barrel me very, very liberally on the river. Just going to throw in a small value bet now that I'm checked to twice. He should definitely have hands that are able to call this small bet that I think might fold to larger ones. And then he goes for a raise, which is odd. Which is quite odd. I guess there's a few value hands I could see him playing this way. Yeah, I'm not happy about it, but I'm going to go for the fold. And looks like we flopped pretty well with the ace-queen. This is a board that I can kind of take two strategies on. One is to just kind of bet a little polarized, bet a bunch of kings and some bluffs. But on this texture, I think in general, just betting with a crap load of hands for a really small sizing is going to do better. And then I can check turn, call basically any river. Seems like a good way to go about it. Definitely going to be more polarized with the turn bets. He goes for the check. He can be checking some kings, and that does make sense, especially since they'll be chopping with their kicker. That being said, there could be a lot of worse hands as well. And apparently it's just the ace-queen chop. I'm throwing in a c-bet with the 8-7 on the dry jack 4-4 board. Get called. We're both going to have a bunch of jacks in our range. So what hands is he calling me with? Probably stuff like ace-queen, maybe ace-king if he's, being tight with his 3-betting. Jacks, and then mid pairs. I block the mid pairs, but I also wouldn't expect them to be folding to a second barrel on this turn. So if my bet serves only to fold out hands like ace king, ace queen, which by the way now have ace high on the double paired board, I don't think it's going to be amazing to throw in the second bet. And I'm not even going to throw in the river bet here. I'm just going to concede this pot. And he throws in the small bet, and that's absolutely fine. Got an open ender against the Triceratops. Could go for the call or could go for the raise here. I think raise is typically going to be better, even though it's a fairly dry board. I'm going to have a lot of value hands that I want to be raising here. So got to balance that out with bluffs at least a little bit. And because the board is so dry, I'm not going to have too many bluffs. So this seems like a really good one to go with. And of course, if you're wondering about, value hands on that board, sets of sevens, eights, sevens, sixes. Yeah, sets of sevens, sets of sixes, 6-7, both suited and offsuit, queen 7, queen 6, both suited and offsuit. It's a spot I'm going to actually have a pretty difficult time bluffing enough, I think. So you get this kind of standard size c-bet here. I briefly just thought about throwing in the pure bluff check raise. I took a look at his c-bet stats. They're 4 out of 4. That's a very small sample. I think you'll get 4 out of 4 from a lot of people, even if their actual c-bet stats are vastly different. Another thing that goes into the consideration there is that this guy is just, he's 60 VPIP, which means a couple things. One, it means he's going to have a lot of garbage in his range, which is great. But two, it means that he's not really the type of guy who seems to like folding all that much. And let's get rid of the deuce 5 here. There's a 3-bet pot going on between I Love Ukraine and Fidel for Real on the top left. Now, I Love Ukraine just decided to just half pot this flop, which doesn't seem great. Maybe he just auto clicked, half pot, that he would with most of his range in a 3-bet pot, just, with the intention of going half pot jam. But it's a spot where Fidel for Real's range is really going to hit that board extremely hard. So it doesn't make sense to just bet a lot of your range for half pot. If you want to bet, just go something larger with more polarized range. Looks like we got a limp here. We're going to raise it up with ace 10. And then we get some aces. So Fidel for Real is opening, and his fold to 3-bet stats are fairly high. So we're going to attempt to bluff him with a slightly liberal 6-8 suited. Aces into 4 players is going to start off with a bet. Oh, and I get called multiple times. That's actually mildly scary. But you know what? I'm still going to take the bet line. I'm not going to be betting very big here. Just hitting that 52% button. And I will be checking river. It really sucks that I have the ace of spades here, because that blocks a fair amount of this player's bluffs, and he hit the river with his flush draw there. So checking there lets him continue with a wider range, because, you know, if I bet into him, I don't think I'm really getting bluff raised. Like, once I triple barrel flop that had 4 people in it, and then, you know, by the time we get to that point, if I'm throwing the third barrel, I don't think I'm getting bluff raised all that often. It is a spot where if I check to him, he could be turning his Jack-10 suited, his 9-10 suited, and he seems kind of loose. So, you know, the stuff like 10-8, Jack-9, 8-7, stuff like that into bluffs as well. Ace deuce with the backdoor is just going to start off with a small bet. Hit the ace on the turn. This will typically be a lot better for me than for him. I'm going to value bet it on the turn. And we got a nice little underbet coming out from small blind in a 3-way pot here. I have a feeling that's not a river he wanted to see. 4 straight on the board now. A $54 bet. I mean, that's all he has, but that's less than half pot. Gets called by the button as well, and wow. All right, winning a nice pot with aces. King 5 is very likely going to be a fold here, even though the odds are good. Yeah, still going to be a fold there. It's just not going to perform well enough. I'm going to take a small c-bet line with my queen deuce. The turn is awesome. I don't think I'm going to be betting super tight on this turn, so I'm actually just going to use a smaller sizing. And this very likely will be a triple barrel. I'll probably have to size up on the river a little bit, but we'll see what Magnica decides to do. And we get the fold right on. Small raise gets shoved on. Whoa. Okay. Velo over here greatly overplaying his 2-pair. Snap calling the river shove, which of course was the absolute nuts. Table at the bottom right is actually getting a little unattractive, so I'm just going to swap that table out. Going to keep playing a fairly aggressive 3-bet strategy against Fidel for real in the top left. That means using ace-4 suited as bluff. And you know what, let's just swap this table out right now. If anybody's curious what happened with the King 7, I got 3-bet and then I folded it. Okay, so when there's an under the gun raise, and then a button 3-bet, and then big blind cold calls, that's kind of scary. I'm going to do a quick search on the button, or sorry, on the big blind. Can't find anything about him. And yeah, so there's either two things that this could be. One, he has a, he's legitimately tight, which means we're getting nearly no folds on this flop out of this one player, and then of course you got a player behind as well. The other one is, he could be really loose, and on this board against a really loose player, I do think we can get some folds. But I'm always more hesitant to bluff against players who who are reluctant to fold. I got squeeze coming in with the jacks. I'm not thrilled about the call with the ace-4, but I'm going to make it. We sometimes have the best hand here, sometimes our ace is live, and the deuce is almost certainly live. I'm actually going to jam this river, because he should have a very, very low amount of 8s. I can also get him to fold chops and potentially get him to fold better hands as well. I think that's a spot where he very likely has... I guess if we look at his range as a whole, maybe he has like 4 combinations of 8s, considering there was the 3-bet pre-flop. But if you consider the fact that he'll be betting at least a few of them on the river when, he actually makes a full house, and you consider the fact that, he might be checking some of them on the turn because you're in a 3-way 3-bet pot and top pair 8s might not be the best for you. When you factor all those things in, I think the likelihood of him having an 8 there is close to nil, and when that's the case, his range is extremely capped, and you want to just bet large. Not sure why Silverino is leading this pot. We're going to raise him. And I think it's fairly obvious that if he leads this flop and calls the raise, he won't be folding the turn at a very high frequency. So I'm actually... I don't know if I'm never going to be bluffing this turn. I guess if I am going to be bluffing it, then something like Jack 10 seems like one of the better hands to use. Or I don't know if it does, because it blocks stuff like Queen Jack, and that's the stuff that he's going to want to be... wanting to be folding on the turn, like facing a large bet. So I don't think my blockers are exceptionally good there. I decided to take a shot on this flop with the 9-7 after seeing the limped pot. It's going to really suck if we lose to Queen Jack here. I think on the flush turn, I have some fold equity. I also have a reasonable draw. And on the river, I'm going to choose not to bluff, just give up on this spot. Magnica's range should be extremely capped here. I'm going to be betting at my ace-6 for value. I don't expect any high aces. I don't expect Jack-10. Jack-10 seems like a hand that will be nearly always barreling the flop. There could be some strong hands like King-Queen, Queen-3, pocket queens there. But overall, it's a fairly low amount of combos. And let's throw in a couple raises, Jack-8 and deuces. Deuces are unfortunately going to check back this board. It's a spot after checking back I don't expect to win a very large amount of the time because something like this is going to happen. And I don't think deuces can call down profitably in this spot. Face a small 3-bet here with Jack-8. Jack-8 is definitely on the liberal side, but it's a small 3-bet, so let's defend against it. So something like Jack-9 I think seems pretty standard. Jack-10 of course is amazing. Jack-8 not so much, but for the price, sure, let's do it. We're also in position. This board is typically going to heavily favor the preflop raiser as long as he has at least tight-ish range, and flopping nothing but a couple overs and a backdoor. I think we're just going to be folding this one. Ooh, and we got a limper. All right, guys, let's maybe call this ace-king last hand of the video, or this ace-king, or this queens. Suddenly, all the good hands are coming out. While I do expect a lot of folds from Fidel, I am going to still 3-bet my top value hands. I'm also going to 3-bet ace-king. Pot seems like a reasonable sizing here, so we're going to go up to 15. And I will 100% stack off there if that's something he wants to do. Alright, I think that seems like a good spot to call it a video. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. As usual, if you guys have comments, questions, anything like that, feel free to leave it in the comment section below the video. I do tend to respond to those. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Ooh, hold on. Outro. Guys, it's been Komodo Dragon Jesus, Darius for PokerVIP. There we go. See you next time.